You're listening to This Week in No Code plus AI, with weekly episodes sharing the latest advancements of AI, plus exclusive interviews with founders using these tools. So without any further ado, let's get started. Welcome to This Week in No Code plus AI. I'm JJ and I'm your host. Big shifts this week, major partnerships, smarter tool chains, and MCP becoming the backbone of agent-powered apps. Plus, we're joined by Aron from GumLoop, the AI automation platform that just launched their own version of MCP Nodes. He'll walk us through everything they've been building in a jam-packed episode of all things AI. Let's get into it. Sam Altman and Apple's former design chief, John Ivey, just made it official. OpenAI is acquiring Ivey's design firm, I/O, for $6.5 billion. Their goal? Physical AI products that blend beautiful form with next-gen intelligence. My take? This is OpenAI making a real bet on hardware and design as a differentiator. Salesforce just launched AI teammates directly in Slack. They're positioning these bots as collaborators, not just assistants. Think summarizing combos, managing workflows, handling common requests without jumping apps is a direct shot at Microsoft's Copilot and raises the bar for what teammate AI actually looks like. OpenAI upgraded Codex to handle real-world coding tasks, automating more of the grunt work. Meanwhile, Google launched Jules, a free AI coding agent that early users say outperforms Codex on speed, reasoning, and context awareness. Expect a serious race here for the dev market, and whoever nails real-time context wins, in my opinion. However, I really love the form factor that Codex offers with being able to do multiple things in parallel. MCP, Model Context Protocol, is a universal plug that lets LLMs call tools like APIs. OpenAI added native support for remote calls, file search, Python, image generation, and more. That means your LLM can now use tools and not just describe them. Zapier's in, Shopify, Stripe, Twilio too. And if you're using Claude, Cursor, or ChatGPT with MCP plus Zapier, you now have access to 8,000 real tools through natural language. My take, this is the unlock for agentic AI. It's how you go from talking AI to doing AI. Intercom's using it to estimate CSAT scores, extract insights from combos, and flag doc gaps, all automated at scale. That's not hype, that's ROI. And speaking of MCP, GumLoop just launched their own implementation of MCP Nodes. Aron, their community and education lead, joins us this week to walk us through what that means, how they're enabling more complex AI automations, and why tooling is everything right now. But before we get into the interview, Google I/O just happened, and I got to give you some of the quick hits from that conference because, man, they came out swinging. So VO3, an AI-generated video model, now with sound. Think short-form ads and storytelling, AI-generated video, and sound to go with it. It's incredible. Flow, a new creative tool bundling video, which is VO, images, Image 4, and music, Lyra 2 is now out. Stitch turns text prompts into HTML or Figma-ready designs, great for front-end prototyping. The Gemini app now has two paid tiers, $20 a month, and the Ultra $250 a month. Ultra can reason over files, seems very much like the ChatGPT subscription model there. Project Astra, Google's next-gen assistant that sees your screen and camera for deeper interaction. Really cool stuff they're doing there. The Gemini API, dev-focused updates, async function calling, live URL scraping, and full MCP support. Bottom line, Google's building the creative agentic future into every product layer. They're also doing it with Google Meet, where you can have real-time translation if two speakers speak different languages. It's really cool stuff. My TLDR for you is tool use is what separates fun demos from actual value. MCP is the connector, and the companies leaning in like Intercom, Zapier, Google, GumLoop, and many others are building the next layer of the internet. It's a really exciting time, something I'm very optimistic for. And now to talk more about that is Aron from GumLoop. Aron, welcome to the stage.
Yeah, JJ, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Tell us a little bit about your story, and then we'll get into GumLoop. But first, tell us about you.
Yeah. Happy to. So yeah, really excited to be here. My story is a little weird. About what are we, 2025? So about 6 years ago, I started a channel called Automate All the Things, which some of your listeners hopefully still remember. Where I would the short stories, I saw Nelson from Webflow live stream, and I was like, that's so cool. I can't believe people would watch an adult build websites online. And I was like, would adults watch me build workflows? Because I was really into Airtable. So I started building these workflows, and no one showed up for a while, but then people started enjoying it, which meant a lot to me. And then, one thing led to another, and I joined Airtable, and I was lucky enough to join their education team. And so spent a little bit of time about 3 years at Airtable. Joined the Webflow team after that, on the community team with Emily McGuire and Nelson. Got a chance to work with Nelson, which was awesome. Shout out to him. And then, spent about 3 years at Webflow. And now I'm at GumLoop. So it feels good to be back in the systems automation space. And really cool. I had a chance to meet you and a lot of the folks of the NoCode community. And just super excited to be here.
Wonderful. That's really cool experience, Airtable, Webflow, GumLoop. Tell me about McGuire. How was it working with him, and what a personality he is?
Yeah, I mean, McGuire's the best at what he does. That's all I'll say.
I'm going to cover the big 5 that I use, and that's structure, humor, visuals, music, and hairstyling, which I think have all, in one way or another, contributed to creating what many consider some of the best teaching in software. Let's start with structure.
I think he is, unlike anyone else in terms of being able to understand how to teach efficiently and in an interesting way. I think we all strive to be that good. So I don't think I ever come close, but hopefully I have some glimmers of interest. But I think what was cool about McGuire and what he taught me is to be yourself, right? So I think like when I joined Webflow, I think we all try to be McGuire-esque, but that's just not the right approach. So, the thing I mainly take away from working with McGuire is to be maximally yourself, and that's people. So the quirks that make you weird and fun are what actually people like. So, I don't have McGuire's dry humor. I just get really excited about things. Hopefully that's what people remember from my content. And that's what I try to lean into now versus trying to be as funny or as smart as McGuire.
Yeah, passion's wonderful. And McGuire, he was one of the best, is one of the best. I've
Absolutely.
watched his videos for whenever I need to get into a mood for filming a new course, filming a video, ideas for videos. It's like, let's put on some McGuire and jam for a bit. See what we
Absolutely.
got here.
We all do that. We all do. We're always gotta, McGuire's the best. So shout out to him if he's
yeah,
listening.
shout out to him wherever he is. Now you're at GumLoop, and so you left Webflow to go to GumLoop. What was that conviction? Why did you make that move?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, like I love the Webflow community. It is one of the best, and I think their content production is the best, and the team there is the best. I'm not a website designer. I just suck at it. I love teaching Webflow. I just got to a point where I was like, I need to get back into teaching something that I love. And, that I think that's a testament to the team there, that they kept me so long, in that, CSS is not something I'm like instinctively good at. And they were nice, the community there was super nice with me. And I did a lot of the backend stuff, the CMS stuff and DevLink and all that. And I just got to a point and I was like, I want to get my hands back into teaching people how to automate things. My channel was called Automate All the Things, and there was a reason for that. And it just so happened that I started using GumLoop. Maybe now is a good time for the backstory, but
Sure.
you can imagine everyone listening gets pitched a lot of automation tools.
Especially right now, it's the heyday.
God, and do we want the whole backstory? Is that interesting?
Give me what you want.
Short version.
Give me what you got. Yeah.
So a big problem we had at Webflow was that we had a small social team and a very large community, and within everything we were mentioned, like there was this needle in a haystack where someone was like, "Hey, I need help," or and we couldn't differentiate between like, "Hey, I love Webflow," and like, "I need support right now," because that was maybe one message out of the thousands that we get every day. So we built this internal tool that would like use AI to identify what the right responses were, and some developer built it and handed it off to me and was like, "You can figure this out with Cursor. You're smart enough." I was not. And it just so happened that Bryant, one of the co-founders of Webflow, was like, "Hey, you got to try this automation tool." And I was like, "Oh man, Bryant, like I don't want to try another automation tool." But then I was like, "Oh, could I automate this social listening workflow?" And then it took me a couple hours, and I was like, "Wow!" Like I'm grabbing every single social media post. It was X or Twitter at that time only. I was passing it through AI. AI was like, "Here are the posts you need to be weary, not weary, but like actually should respond to." And then we were like, "Oh, can we do this for Reddit?" I was like, "Absolutely, we can do it for Reddit." "Can we do it for our internal forum?" I was like, "Yes, we can do it for our internal forum." I was like, "Can we do it for YouTube comments?" And I was like, "Yeah." And YouTube comments, imagine at Webflow, is like a persistent pain. And then was like, "Oh, like this is a new tool. It's only going to get better." Um, and reach out to the team, and I really believed in how they look at automation, and especially automation in the world of AI is going to be very different, I think, than automation that we've used so far. Um, and yeah, I guess I convinced them, they convinced me, and I'm super happy to be heading up education and community here at GumLoop. It's been a real ride, and yeah, I haven't been this excited about automation in a while. Um, and it's really fun to be part of it instead of looking at it from the outside as a user. I'm really excited to be moving it forward. So that's the story of how I got here.
And what is GumLoop? What is it? And where are you based? How big's the team? Give us a little
Sure.
backstory of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So GumLoop I think we are still sub 15 employees. We're based in San
It's exciting.
Francisco. GumLoop is a different approach to automation that assumes that AI is just native to whatever you're doing, right? So a big distinction. I imagine your audience and like the people who listen to this like have used Make, Zapier, N8N. Um, those live in a world of if this then that often, right? So they assume that there's a trigger and then actions, then an output, and GumLoop can do that. But also GumLoop doesn't assume that that's the case. So a lot of our workflows are just click, right? So enrich these hundreds of thousands of leads, or hey, like a good example is, hey, go read out this Reddit posts come in a list, right? So list is actually one of the functionality that GumLoop really differentiates itself on, and write me a report.
Hmm.
That type of workflow where you're going into a list and then bringing it into text doesn't really make sense in a world outside of AI, right? Because why would you want to kind of combine elements in a list unless because that, you don't want to unstructured data, right? So that's one big differentiator. I think another, the way we think is that, we'll give you the credentials to all the AI platforms. So you can use any AI model natively within GumLoop, and you can use AI in different ways within GumLoop as well. So you can use it, and ask what we call Ask AI node, which is like that prompt base. You can categorize information, you can extract data, you can create images. And just the way we approach building is kind of different, right? We don't ask you what your trigger is when you start your flow. We just ask you what you want to do,
Hmm.
right? And so happy to kind of talk about that in the context of a flow, where really GumLoop is just like, what if you built an automation tool today, right? That
Yeah.
assumes that AI is just going to be part of every single one of your workflows. And from there, you get a different automation tool from everything out there. And for me, as a automator, like that's what I've been doing for the big part of my career. I was just like, oh my God, I feel so much more powerful. I can feel like I can do so much more. Uh, so yeah, so how I got to GumLoop, and that's why I'm like super excited to use it every day.
When you think about the automation industry, it's been 10 years plus, and AI hasn't always been there. And so a lot of these platforms were built not in an AI first way. So GumLoop has the advantage of saying AI is here, it's just getting started. Let's build it AI first every step of the way. Do you mind bringing up
Yeah,
something on your side where you could kind of show us around the platform and kind of show us what makes it different than the Zapier, the Makes, the Ands, et cetera?
yeah, absolutely. Let me actually jump into. You should see my screen here. I don't know how high quality it is. So,
It's great.
um, okay, so this is the flow that I had built at Webflow, like replicated here. So at GumLoop, everything. So if you think of a workflow, right, you think of like steps in your workflow. In our case, those are called nodes. In this case, I'm looking at Twitter. Every grabbing all posts from the last 4 hours, right? And this is a node. So this is going to be a list of everything about that post. Now, what I do is I pass that into a subflow. Now, subflows, I'm going to bring you up just on the side so I can see. And if you have any questions, let me know. So subflows are, if you are a developer, think of subflows as like functions, right? And so often what you see is these like, and I've been guilty of this as well, like these like 50-step monstrosities, something fails somewhere. So in GumLoop, we think in terms of subflows. So these are functions. So in my case, I want to grab multiple social media, right? So I want to read Reddit, I want to grab LinkedIn and X and analyze each post from each one of those social media platforms. So I created a subflow that takes as input the post content, post author, and then the channel, and then uses our AI categorizer step that says, hey, is this high or low urgency? So this is taking each post that tags GumLoop, right? And then says, okay, is it high urgency or low urgency? And then sends a Slack message whenever something is considered high, right?
So
And it
those
does this across all
subflows,
channels.
those subflows, you can create once and use them in many different workflows then, right?
That's right. So if I go here into our node library,
Yeah.
this is where you can kind of build your different, think of these as steps, right? So
Okay.
I can read, like read Slack, read Airtable, read or write, send messages.
hmm
But also you have subflows. So these are the subflows that are available in your workbook, right? So I have multiple flows
That
in
you
this workbook.
created and then you could
Yes,
reuse.
yes. And then I
Amazing.
also have all flows I've created across the workspace.
Awesome.
So if someone in your team builds a flow that you want to reuse, and this
hmm
kind of create these like
Reusable
pieces.
components.
Exactly. So you can
Yep.
say something like, oh, like read Salesforce, read active opportunities,
hmm
right? Or, hey, generate report. It takes as input some, information from Google Sheets, whatever, and then write the report. You can use that multiple times. In my case, I wanted every single social media post to go through the same categorization.
hmm
That way, I'm analyzing each one in a similar way. And then, for instance, what we would do I have a whole course on this on GumLoop University, where you can write them to Airtable, Google Sheets, and then once a week have a report that says like, hey, here's what's being said about you. Those are just some of the kind of examples of um, that use lists, right? But use them in ways that are different and kind of lets you automate your workflows in a very different way than what previously was possible.
Yeah. It's a very different look and feel too than a Zapier and an NAN and whatnot. I'm looking on the screen here. We have error shields. What might that be?
Yeah. So this is actually a good example. So for instance, if there's an error in your subflow, right?
hmm
So a good example is like, think of this. Let's say I am enriching contacts, right? I may have, a sheet that has 10,000 contacts and I want to enrich them using enrich contact, which we have natively. I may not find information for each one, right? So we want to say, okay, if any of the steps in the list, so if we're enriching 10,000 contacts and 20% of them fail, that's okay. Don't stop the flow, right? Keep it running. So it's important to understand in GumLoop, when you are running on a list, we are parallelizing those
hmm
executions.
Yep.
So if one of them fails without an error shield, we're going to say, hey, your flow failed. You need to
Mm,
fix it. But if you have an error shield, it's going to keep running.
gotcha. Gotcha. So that way it completes all 10,000, even though maybe only 8,000 had values worthwhile.
Exactly. Exactly. Let me look at, okay, so this, a good example. Let me look at, it ran 3 hours ago.
So you're pulling up the
And
history of that recent run and kind of being able to see each of those steps as it ran.
exactly. So then we had a few retweets, right? So those were then run. And actually, this is a good example, right? So both of these failed
Okay.
because they weren't urgent,
hmm
right? So from a workflow perspective, that's a failure because we filtered to no.
hmm
But for me, that's actually successful, right? That's what I
hmm
want. I don't want urgent posts. So they were both kind of ignored. So if there's a blitz of like 100 tweets that mention us, 80% will, or I hope more than 80%. I hope we don't have 20% of people who need help online, right? They need urgent response from me. So it's this kind of different approach to how folks think about workflows. So in this case, we're saying if anything fails in this subflow, right? If any of this fails, don't consider it an error, keep it running.
Yep. Yep. That makes sense. And it's a really good use case of you have one person and maybe they're monitoring 10 different channels. How do you do that effectively without getting sucked into each one? Even just going to that platform to check those recent notifications sucks you in, because then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, there's and so it's like, let's just stay high level. Let's analyze the sentiment coming through. Let's collect those results. And then also let's analyze it at large each week to make sure the sentiment is going well in our favor each week, in a pure analytical way, without just the social media manager saying, yeah, it's good, or no, we got to do something.
Yeah. A good, and then, examples of where this can take you is that you can see like, okay, well, if we go into analyze posts, we can also have another subflow that checks whether it's product feedback. And we might want to categorize that as well, right? So we can have another subflow that checks, right? So if we categorize it as urgent, but we can also do positive or negative, we can, this is just one example of what's possible. Like another example, just kind of riffing off of, we had a client who said, hey, send me an email whenever there is urgent messages, right? But what's funny here is AI actually formats this email for us. So this is not a template. This is actually I gave the AI HTML template that I asked AI to generate. I said, hey, can you give me an HTML and CSS template that looks like Twitter, has its colors, and would be good for urgent posts? And then I fill in using the Ask AI node what the tweets are and a link. And then this gets sent out whenever there's an urgent post
It looks very professional too. It feels like it's a legit platform, that's just meant for this, sending you that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I've been learning a lot of, like, candidly, like, what is the boundary of what AI can and can't do? And I always thought that, like, oh, I need to, if I want to send a really nice email that's maybe not consequential, right? So like this email is internal, right? But I would still be like, oh, I need to use something like, loops or whatever to send this email. And then I'm like thinking about parameters and I'm thinking about events, sending from here to there. But here was someone just told me like, hey, just write the email in with AI and ask it to make it beautiful and then fill in the parameters into that email. And I was like, wow, this email is good, right? This is good. And then for all my internal emails now, for like, if I send myself a report, like a good example, you can really easily be like, hey, 20 minutes before my meeting, with someone, go out,
Give me prep or something like that.
Yeah, go do a Perplexity search, do a Salesforce search, do a HubSpot search, grab all this information that I have about this person and generate me this like super nice one pager. That aspect of like go internally to find information about a specific to an internal tool, that's really unique to GumLoop, right? Because that's going to return a list of activities, a list of cases, list of support tickets. Then you want to, what we call smush all of that into an AI step to then go to the next step, which is either write a report, analyze, do things like that. That's really super simple on GumLoop.
Yeah. I see a couple other things on the visual interface here. We have add interface. Can you tell us or show us what that is?
Yeah. Let me do an example here. What would be a good example? So I'll just create one. So interfaces.
How about like a YouTube to blog article?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's actually super good. That's a great example. So let's imagine that you want a workflow. I think an easier way is like
YouTube URL.
Input are often the starting points. So let me grab a YouTube GumLoop. Let's do this one. So I'm putting in the YouTube URL. Then we want to transcribe that one.
So there's a YouTube node for transcribing. You just grab that.
Yes, exactly. And GumLoop, passing nodes from one node to another is a two-step process. So I'm connecting, then I'm passing it in. So if we run that, it's going to execute every step in our flow, right? So it's got the YouTube transcript, bam.
That came out.
And now,
quick.
Yeah. And now let's go ahead and have AI write a blog post. So you can do like coming back to this idea of like, let me bring a bunch of nodes here. So these are node categories.
Mm-hmm.
This is everything you can do with AI in GumLoop. So ask AI, that's kind of that prompting setup.
Mm-hmm.
Extract data is like, I have this big blob of text, whether that's a contract, an invoice, an email, and I want to extract pieces of information, address, line items, sender, things like that. I can go ahead and add that, and I can specify what I want to extract. Categorizer, that's the one I did for, is it urgent? Is it not urgent? Is it positive? Is it negative? Um, Also, extract data, really good for parsing JSON. I know it sounds dumb to use AI, but the idea of like, we also have a JSON reader, but sometimes you just want to kind of like, oh, just find me this information in this big blob of JSON. Generate image, that's the GPT image, AI web research, which will do a research around the web to grab information. And there's like a bunch of others.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah,
AI actions here.
exactly. And those are kind of just pre-configured ways of using AI. The most general
Mm-hmm.
of which is Ask AI. So I'm going to connect, and then I'm going to say, write a blog post about this YouTube video.
And
I'm
with
just
this
going to,
node, I could choose my model there. Great.
exactly. Yeah. So I would say transcript. I'm just going to pass it in. Usually I have like ChatGPT or even Gummy write me a prompt. So write me a prompt.
Gummy is your way of using text to vibe workflowing.
Sort of. Yeah. Yeah. And it's only getting better. So Gummy is kind of like it understands your flow and it can
Okay.
suggest nodes.
Okay.
And then I'll show you like a really cool in a moment, like example of what Gummy can do. So write me a prompt that takes as input a YouTube transcript and writes a nice blog post.
It's
So
kind of
what's
like your
cool about
companion
Gummy?
there.
Yeah, Gummy has context over your whole flow. So you can also ask it like, what should I do next? And it's often going to recommend specific things to do.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. And then it's like, oh, here are like different next steps that you can do.
Oh, cool. So responding with that prompt for you, you could take that and copy and paste that into the using AI node
Exactly.
prompt area. And then, yeah, it had suggestions for what you could do with get the transcript, ask AI for next steps and whatnot.
Yeah.
And, this is essentially a ChatGPT call, but with the context and just easily right there for you.
Yes. And I'm going to show you in a moment, like our next, like a really cool thing that we're launching in beta, or we launched in beta this week, using Gummy as well. So let me exit Gummy mode. Okay. So we have our flow. So this is writing the blog post, and then you could do, okay, send me a Slack message. Let's write a Google Doc. Why not?
Okay.
Let's write a
Yeah.
Google
So,
Doc.
so far, guys, we have created a workflow, an AI workflow that you feed it a YouTube URL link. It'll transcribe that URL. Then you'll send that transcription to AI to then write you an SEO optimized blog article. And now it's going to take that value and put it right into Google Docs for you.
Exactly. And then let's imagine we also want to do as input, right, what we want the title to be.
Ah, okay, cool.
So let's say
So you can add multiple inputs to this. So you're asking for the URL and now the title. So then you can give it direction on the title.
Yeah. So let's say this is, creating nodes in GumLoop. You can even like probably grab the title from the YouTube, right? So now I
Sure.
want that in my title.
Oh, nice. With that input, you brought it directly to step 4 rather than step 2, like
Exactly.
the other one would. Okay.
So here we want, this right here, and then the content like this in its plain text. We can also support Markdown, HTML. So let's run that. And so yeah, it's read the transcript. It's having us write a blog post. So this is as if like we're going to ChatGPT. And yeah, you mentioned the models. We have access to
all those models built in for you. Yeah, so you guys we'll run on credits with you guys, and your plan will just support whatever that is. But you would have done all the models for us.
That's correct. So you don't need an agreement with OpenAI, Claude, Anthropic.
Get those keys, set up that billing
it's all
for every
available.
single one. Yeah.
So let me open up
All right,
that
so then
blog
it just
post.
gave us that Google Doc. It put
Okay,
it out
I'll
in
put it as
HTML format, which is fine. It could work. We could also just prompt it to not do that.
Exactly. Let let me say, do not what? Oh, I see. It's format the blog, post in HTML. That's why. That was part of the prompt. So I'm actually going to say format or as plain text. And then we could resume instead of running the whole thing. We can just resume from an existing node.
Oh, cool. And just
So if you
redo that
have
one step of that node.
exactly, if you have, and it'll
Nice.
kind of check the graph to see which ones it needs to rerun based off of that.
Smart.
So you don't need to run the whole flow. Okay, so it's generating. There we go. So we're gonna have a new. There we go.
Doc is up. Blog is written just from that YouTube video right there. So we created that whole workflow in the last 7 minutes. Now, where's the interface come in on this?
Yes, that's where I was going. Okay, so now we understand this concept of inputs,
Yep.
right? And this is, you still need to go into the flow. So now you can replace those with an interface.
Okay.
So I always think it's easier to build with the inputs because then you could use it as a subflow, right? But in this case, let's replace it with an interface. So interface are ways to share internally workflows. So if someone's like, oh, I need to write a blog post about this YouTube article, I don't need access to the underlying flow. So let's edit the interface. So we're going to have, okay, so YouTube.
So now we see an interface editor to like a front end for your workflow where it'll allow you to visualize the inputs so you can send that interface to other team members where they'll just need to input that YouTube link and that title and then it'll run for them.
Exactly.
Beautiful. So
So
drag and drop
post
interface.
title.
It gives you different inputs that you can put in there, text fields, drop downs, emails, etc. Headings.
Let's just put little strong arm. Why not? Now I just replace these with this right here. So I'm going to remove this.
Gotcha.
I just like to show the input as a sometimes an easier kind of way of building, but it's really exactly the same. So now I connect here, and then we have as our fields that we can use. So YouTube link.
Yep.
And then I'm going to connect it to the final one.
Title. Yeah.
Right. And so
easy peasy.
Let's go ahead. Now, that would have been, I can also show you like how to loop this on a list, but first I want to show you MCP nodes. There's a lot of stuff. There we go. So this should work exactly as we did before. Let's actually do an output. So the user who's outputting, so we can go here.
So after it writes that Google Doc, it's also going to output just that plain text for us, something like that?
So no, the doc link. So the output is the link itself. So your doc is
Makes
ready.
Sense.
So let's save that. Right. And then let's go ahead and copy the link. Let's open this. Okay.
Boom.
So let me grab.
We have an interface with the 2 inputs for YouTube link and title, and we could just run that workflow right away. And then that should return that doc link when we're ready.
Exactly. So this you can share, and you'll notice that you have to be logged in. And this is so that if you're using underlying tools, we actually check whether the person has access to those underlying tools.
Sure.
So this is not something to share publicly. We have webhooks, or you can integrate with a trigger to do those types of things. But this is mainly for people sharing workflows internally within their company.
Awesome. Now we see a progress bar of this workflow running. I can imagine that this company could have a set of tools already built for any of the team members, and then the company could just go and say, like, what tool do I need access to? And it's essentially this interface for this workflow that you've built. And they can just, make it happen in a very customized way for your company.
Exactly. So, interfaces, I would say, are quite a common way for larger teams to not collaborate, but use automations, right? You don't necessarily want people to be going into the underlying flows, right? And changing the inputs and outputs. So that's definitely.
I think this visualizes the workflows like better than most platforms I've seen in that way of just like, here's this 5-step workflow that we made for you, but here's a beautiful interface that I can just share with all my team members now. If they need to, take YouTube to blog, here it is.
Yeah,
easy
exactly.
peasy.
Exactly. And then, so interfaces are quite useful for, hey, like if you get into this, depending on how technical you are, you might not love this. And because we do have a lot of trigger-based workflows, but that's not exclusively what we deal with, right? So someone might be like, hey, enter an email, give me a 2-page
lead
report.
enrichment, sales, all that kind of stuff you could do so many of these flows for.
Exactly.
So what about AI agents? Does GumLoop have any AI agent nodes?
Yeah. Yes, in one way, shape, or form. So how much time do we have?
I'd say we got another 10 minutes of this before we talk about where this industry is going.
Sure. Okay. So we do not today believe or have these like general AI things like read my email and respond, right? Or hey, look at my Slack and tell me what's up. In part because they perform relatively poorly, and I think in most cases the challenge of automation still stems in like structured workflows, right? That said, we do have agentic type nodes. So let me explain what that means. Let me create a new flow here, and let's imagine. So we have a node called the Web AI Research. So this is agentic in the sense that it does not have inputs or outputs. You first have to prompt it to create what you want the inputs and outputs to be. So it's usually in the format of given X, return Y. So a good example might be given a company, return its headquarters, city, and the amount of money it's raised. Right. So this is essentially saying like, okay, given an input, given a company name, and now it's going to go ahead and generate the inputs and outputs. So that's one thing. So it's agentic in the sense that it generates the node on the fly. And the second part is that it actually goes out to the web to find this information for you.
Okay.
Right. So it's going to take all of the web as it currently is, find the information, and return it in a structured way. Right. So let's do, ideally, it's public information in that it's on some website.
Sure.
So let's imagine, I don't know, DoorDash.
Now, this isn't scraping. This is just doing research,
So,
right?
say that again.
This isn't scraping sites. It's just doing
It's not
research
well.
for
It's
anything.
not scraping. It's just finding the information. You don't need to scrape anything. It just goes out to the web as the web is today and finds this information. It returns answers where it found the information and what its reasoning is for if it didn't find it, or just some thoughts around what it did find. It can take a little bit of time to run, right?
Sure.
So it takes
It's
it can
researching.
take up to a minute or 2 minutes to run because it is scouring all of the internet. We're trying to make it faster. So this is kind of the one of the agentic type of structures we have on GumLoop. But mainly what GumLoop deals with is structured workflows, right? Workflows that people understand, but want to enhance or improve with AI. Now, note that some workflows are impossible without AI, right? My monitoring workflow, that one is only enabled because of AI. And those are the
And the
types of workflows
sentiment
we
and
deal
all that
with in
kind of
GumLoop.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I brought up web scraping. Do you have a node for web scraping as well?
Yeah. So it's called web scraper, website scraper. You input a URL, it'll return that information. And then you can pass it into AI nodes and do things like that. We also have web agent scraper, which you can do actions on. So it's quite common if you need to scroll down the page to get all the information.
Oh, I see. I'll go to the next page.
Exactly. The next page is website crawler. So you can have a certain depth. This one takes a while to run. But see, there we go. Our AI web research has finished running.
Okay.
So raised 2.5 billion.
DoorDash? Wow, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's based in San Francisco, and it says Crunchbase indicates that DoorDash is located in San Francisco.
There you
States that DoorDash has raised 2.5 billion over 11 funding rounds.
Sure. And now you can loop those sort of things. You can save those results, all that kind of stuff. The world, you could do it all.
Yeah. So if you want to loop, so let's imagine that we want to. I'm going to create a new flow, which is like, let's create a sheet of companies. I'll just do this quickly. So companies. So we would do like Instacart. I'm just trying to DoorDash.
Sure.
Shopify when I'm just whatever comes to mind. And let's go back here. Let's read that. So it feels a little different from using your existing automation tools. That's something I felt when I started using GumLoop. But once you get kind of like not where's my companies? We have too many tools. Let me actually just use the URL. Let me share this with anyone. So here we go, Google Sheet Reader. And now let's call this get company H info. Now we can loop over get company info, right? So it's called a subflow, get company info. I can bring that in. bring in the company list, you'll see that it goes into loop mode. And now we can run this subflow, this step. And if imagine I could have multiple
Very
steps,
cool.
right? I could have 10
Yeah.
steps running over
And
this.
it's
I'm not going to
all
run it
being
because
fed off that Google Sheets. Yeah. And then it's going to pull in
And then-
find all that information for those rows that you've created in the respective fields.
exactly. Yeah. So we can now output
Beautiful.
the HQ, right? Think of this as a function.
Yeah. I mean, and you're moving fast in here. I mean, it's amazing what you can build, how quick you can build it, and the power that you have with it.
Yeah. Once you kind of understand this canvas-like setup,
Mm-hmm.
it's a tremendous amount of flexibility. And it's just really cool. You can just start building. So here I'm just saying it's only running one node, so maybe not the best subflow.
Sure.
But you can imagine scraping the website, finding the website, going to internal information. And now we have those outputs, right? So you
Mhm.
give a company list, it's going to output the amount raised and the HQ. And then you could do multiple things, right? You can use this subflow in any one of your other flows.
That's awesome. And then I assume you could schedule these to run daily and,
Yep.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so you can trigger based on existing tools, right? So like Slack,
Sure.
Gmail, things like that. And you could do time trigger, which is scheduling, like
Cool.
every hour.
Cool. So MCP,
Okay.
how are you guys on this? MCP is blowing up everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. It's the ability for LLMs to, call, these APIs or these LLMs from other tools, bring it all together. Where's GumLoop and MCP?
Yes. So maybe I'll do a quick intro and then we could, kind of jump into building. So how we're approaching MCP is a little different in the sense that the main demo today for MCP is like use it in ChatGPT
Yeah.
or no, sorry, not ChatGPT, Claude, Cursor.
Yeah.
And it is a client trying to interpret what you're saying with the tools it has access to. We looked at that and said, really cool, but really inconsistent, right? Like you have to every time tell it yes, and then you can't chain actions quite well, right? We looked at it and said, could this be a way for us to make better, deeper integrations to the tool we already have and release more integrations faster? So the way when we launched MCP nodes this week, so how our MCP's nodes work is that for a given tool, Slack, Salesforce, you prompt what you want this node to be. So a good example might be retrieve an account with input its lead ID and include tickets, QBRs, but scope to the tool itself, right? A Slack might be, hey, go to the general channel and retrieve all messages from Aron.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then, so that's like a faster way of just getting to what you can do. And the second thing is like, now we can do things that we don't have to build a native for. Like we don't have create channel. Like think of Slack. Slack has like hundreds of API endpoints. It has pin message. That's a thing you can do with the API. Do we have users asking for it? Absolutely. Do we have enough that we're going to like dedicate a bunch of resources to it? Probably not. But now with MCP nodes, that's available in our MCP server. And so what GumLoop does as a client is writes code for you to query our MCP server to do what you want it to do at a node. Like, I don't know if you can tell the excitement in my voice. I'm extremely excited about this, and we've been using it here. Like, I've been automating Salesforce for the last week. I don't know anything about Salesforce, but I know what I want, right? I know that I'm going to be like, oh, could you retrieve account details based on an account ID, include QBRs? QBRs
all
is
plain text, essentially.
all plain text. So yeah, let me show you an example.
Okay.
Disclaimer, beta, we just launched this. Where everyone here is a friend. So how do you get to our MCP nodes? You go to the node library. We have it for Slack, Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Docs, and Salesforce. Yeah, and GitHub. How about we do Google Calendar?
Sure.
Let me check how many calendar. I don't have that many meetings in general, so I just want to make sure I have nothing sensitive here.
Yeah, so what we're seeing on visual side is a node where it says, describe what you want to do with Google Calendar. And then plain text, you can just write
Yeah.
into that.
So let's say retrieve my meetings from the last week that include an external attendee. And we'll have example prompts,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's important to say that this is both faster ways of doing things that were already possible and deeper integrations of things you can't do with our native nodes. Okay. Now we're going to bear with me. Now I am generating the first thing, Gummy. This is our little chatbot that we talked to a bit ago. It's going to be like, this is what I think the inputs and outputs of your node are. So it's not just one-shotting the code, right? It's saying like, this is what I think your node should do, right?
So it kind of created that node for us in that sense.
Yes. Right. So it says that I think one of the it's saying I think one of the parameters is the different calendars you have access to. That makes total sense.
Yep.
Right. And then you want to select the date range. You want a max result. Search term. I want to be like, what is search term? I don't want that. Let's remove it. Right. And then it's going to say output in a list of external meetings. I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes total sense. Let's generate the code. And now it's going to write code for me that does what I want it to do. It takes a little bit of time, and we're working really hard to speed this up.
So do you then attach this to like the Claude, or do you get it, or is this the Claude interface where then you're then getting that information back?
Yeah,
Do you
no.
know what I mean about that?
So this is what's really interesting. We are the client, and we use MCP to generate this code. So like this is calling MCP servers.
Okay.
Our own, like we built our own MCP servers. And what we do is generate code that can be reused every time you run this node. So let me do last week. And let me get 20 results. Let's run a test. So now it's executing that code with these parameters. Oh, wait, I put holidays in the US. Let's try again. Test new values. Let's do Aron at GumLoop. Okay, so I didn't have any meetings with external attendees. Let me say request changes. So try again. I should have meetings appear here.
So you're essentially vibe coding this MCP server.
Yeah, I'm like telling Gummy like, hey, try again, regenerate the code. This didn't work. And once this node is built, like once we have outputs that we like, we can then reuse this custom built node however many times we want.
In your other workflows.
Correct.
So this is your vibe coding your own nodes to then be used in GumLoop.
Yeah, like a good example is like we don't have natively create Slack channel, but I can just create a node that says create Slack channel.
Ah, yes.
Okay, let's try this again.
And then from the MCP point of view, it's up and running. Nice. So you've seen your meetings with all external participants.
Yeah. So now.
And then from the MCP point of view, could you connect this to Claude, or it doesn't interact in that way?
It doesn't need to interact with. So this is the cool thing. Like we're not using MCP. We are the client, and we generate this right here. Right. So now if I save this, like I exit Gummy mode. Oh wait, let me save the node. Right. Like now this is a node. So I can now say, okay, let's create a report
using this node that we just created with AI.
Using the node. Yeah. Right. And then I could do a Ask AI. I'm just like taking all of my meetings, I'm smushing them into one big blob of text.
GumLoop used other MCP servers to create these nodes for you.
Yes, but we're using we built all the MCP servers behind this.
Okay.
So we actually have a repo, like we have our own MCP servers that, manage, like we manage auth, we manage all these things, and we use them we query our MCP servers through our code so we can build nodes that do exactly what you want it to do, right? And now I can say, write me a report that analyzes where I'm spending my time every week. here are all my external meetings.
I see. It was just a different way of thinking. Normally, I think MCP, I think Claude, and then you connect to that, and then Claude is the client. But in this
Yes,
case, GumLoop is the client with the ability to create its own nodes for more advanced functionality.
exactly. And not only that, but like you can now use your external meeting finder in all of your flows,
Yep.
right? Like I cannot stress enough how excited I am about this.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, the ability for growth is just, you're somewhat stunted by, I don't have that node. Now you're not stunted by that because now they could just use AI to create those nodes.
exactly. So now I can like, here, a good example is like, here, let's go Slack, right?
Hmm.
If I go into all of the tools that are available, pin message, get user
Mm,
preference, remove from channel, get file
yeah,
info, delete, update, unarchive, list users in channel. So
yeah.
it's both a bigger breadth of what you
Hmm.
can do with each one of these, first. And second, you can kind of chain them together, right? Within the context of a single Slack. And I think really the where it really gets powerful is nodes like Salesforce, right?
This kind
So
of cuts down like the moat that like a Zapier might have had because they've had 10 years to build all those integrations, whereas you haven't. But now with the ability to build those integrations on the fly with MCP and AI, you can catch up much quicker because you could build all these nodes yourself.
yes, and I don't want to like I think that's one way of seeing it.
Hmm.
Like it's both the it's both like, yeah, we can do that, but it's also like it's a different way of thinking about like no code. Like I don't know if I can say like no code is dead, but it's different in the sense today, right? But um if this is vibe coding, if this is like
Hmm.
build me an app, and this is like drag and drop, the world is coming here.
Hmm.
That's my thinking, right? Like there are moments where I want to drag and drop.
Hmm.
I'm
Sure.
just like, oh, that the flow we built 10 minutes ago, I was just like, oh yeah, boom. I know how it's built. It's all good.
Yeah.
Right. But there are moments where I'm like, okay, like for this flow to be successful, right? I need to do either multiple things at once. I need a query that's really hard to grok, right? For drag and drop tools. I want something like this. From our perspective, yeah, we're super excited about the idea of like, we can turn on 70 of these and they work.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
obviously, it takes a little bit of time to build the nodes, and we're going to improve that over time. But it's kind of like vibe coding, which is not a term that I love really, meets determinism, right? When I run these flows, they can't be like 50% right. I want
Sure.
the same code to be executed every single time, which is what happens when you drag in a normal node. When you
Hmm.
drag in a Slack reader node, it's just that the code was written by us and we
Hmm.
know it's going to execute every time. But now we're confident that if you prompt one of our nodes well, and I use that word like people are like they're asking too much of our prompts sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, it will generate good code that you can then reuse in your workflows.
Hmm.
And we think it's the the best way to have deeper integrations with the tools that we already use, have better integrations, and have more of them. Right? I think of like
Sure.
HubSpot. I think of Salesforce, Slack. Like there are complicated things that people want that use way more of the API endpoints that we could ever support.
Hmm.
Right? And if you want to do three things at once, like you can do it now.
Hmm.
Right? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I am 100% all in on this being the future of what automation looks like.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I'm super
I,
excited about like not because I work here. Like I'm just
yeah.
truly have not been able to do anything else for a week.
It makes a lot of sense. If you look at, other platforms that have the ability for you to create your own steps, like NAN is one that comes to mind. You have the ability to create, I think, your own nodes in NAN, but that's not, you're not creating with AI. You're creating normally with code to add that to the ecosystem. And so people are able to do it, but it takes longer and it's a bigger process. And not everyone has that ability. And so sometimes you are stunted by the node just isn't available. Like many times I'm thinking about, can I make this workflow? I go and see if the workflow steps are there or not. And it's like, oh, if it's not there, I can't make that workflow. This
Yes,
kind of removes that.
but I would even argue, and this is like I even if you do code, this is better,
Sure.
right? Because you like when you think not obviously if you're a developer and you're like you want to build this for yourself, like I'm not going to stop you, obviously, but even as like, I've found myself being like, oh yeah, like obviously I can like read general, filter, extract, do all, but now I can just be like, hey, return me exactly what I need,
Mm-hmm.
right? As long as it's scoped to one tool.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll also be kind of launching, like just prompt your way to the whole flow, which will use MCP nodes within when it thinks is the right approach.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're big believers in like, we're going to lower the floor on automation by just being able to prompt what you need, right? And we're super, super excited about this idea that we can have more integrations, deeper integrations that are actually easier to use and
Mm-hmm.
build better workflows or better
Mm-hmm.
automation. So yeah, I'm super, super excited.
Let's use something you just said to transition to the industry at large now. So you just said no code is dead. Why do you say no code is dead? From what my perspective, that is no code. You have a visual builder, you are text to prompting it. You're not actually writing code like the AI is writing code for you, but that's still very much no code. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what I think when I say no code is dead, we're being cheeky a little bit. What I mean by that is like the, the, I always say that the problem was no code was not code. It was like the things that come with code, right? Like slow turnarounds, right? And difficult to maintain, all these
Complexity.
things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like the world has shifted to like, oh, coding apps is easy. I'm like, not really, not
Mm-hmm.
really. But coding narrow problems is easy,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you can narrowly define what you want the AI to write, the code, it does it very well. And so that's what I think we've solved. So I actually don't think that there are these baggages related to code when it comes to narrow problems like
Mm-hmm.
fetch Slack channels, fetch all this stuff. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why, like, I think for us, this is the future, and I'm super excited to get into people's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, um, but yeah, that's when I say no. What I mean is like, actually, like, the problems related to code are gone in narrow sets of problems, like
Mm-hmm.
retrieve Slack messages and filter them. Actually, the AI can write that 100% of the time very well. And we're going to leverage that to let people build amazing workflows. But one shot the whole workflow, I don't think so. Like, I don't think
Not
they're going to
yet.
be able to one shot this trigger, all this. Like, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, secret management, all that stuff. So, yeah, we're super excited.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get there too, but from what you have right now, this is really impressive, no doubt. I mean, it's that vibe coding feel of, oh, I want an app, I want workflows, I want all this kind of stuff. And so many people are now used to that text to prompt where it's like if they don't have it, it almost is like the learning curve is too high, you know?
Yeah.
And so having this and being able to create anything on the fly, it makes you so much more versatile as a platform to just solve the user's problems, even if those problems are super niche doesn't mean they're not problems for that customer. So now they have more tools to solve those subset of niche problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah. So as we work to wrap up here, I mean, this industry is moving fast. Claude had its day today, and they continue to talk about MCP. MCP continues to be this thing. Where do you think AI automation, AI agents are going in the future? Say we meet again 1 year from now. What does it look like for us?
Yeah. I don't know. Look, I think there's a lot of attention grabbing, all that stuff. Like for me, if I always say I'm not a particularly smart person because if I could see the future, I would build it. Right. I just as I always use this as an example, like 3 years ago, I had the thought of like, what could be better than Google search? I was just like, Google search is awesome. It searches the whole web, returns you what you need. Like, this is crazy. And then I use ChatGPT and I'm like, this is better. I was just like, this is better. This is just better. Right.
Yeah.
And it's only gotten better. So I don't know what the future holds. Right. So I can't answer that. What I will say this is that I think a lot about, okay, how are people using this and is it useful to people? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that, my whole thing, and like, this is why I'm super biased. My whole career has been, how can I take someone who couldn't do something or thought that they couldn't do something and allow them to do it? Airtable, that was like build internal applications,
Yeah. That
right?
was no
Like,
code for me.
right. And then Webflow was like, hey, can I build, websites and things like that? And
Mm-hmm.
now there is so much, like, even in the AI world, there's still the question of like, I need to talk to someone. I want to understand this. I want to move information from point A to point B. And it's really hard. It's really hard. Like so what I think AI will do two things. And I think what we talked is like lower this floor, increase the ceiling. I think MCP nodes are a perfect example of that, right? We've increased the floor in that you can now be like, oh, you don't natively integrate, create Slack channel and invite users. I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like you natively do it, but I want to chain things together. We can do it. So we're like exponentially more value to you. And then
Mm-hmm.
lowering the floor, like those having good prompt to workflow prompts, like that ability to prompt a workflow into existence is going to lower the floor. What I will say is that one thing I've learned in working in this world for long enough is that it's hard to do everything, right? Building a whole app is harder than building a widget.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm more of I don't know. I don't know anything, but I always think that winners in this are things that they do some things very well. And what I'm excited about for GumLoop particularly is like we want to build workflows really well, right? There's a lot of things we don't want to be good at, right? We're not going to be building apps, not in the short term anyway, right? And so we want to make sure that everything we build provides value to the people using GumLoop. And personally, I'm like, even from 2 weeks ago using these MCP, I'm like, wow, there's so much we can do now. Like
Mm-hmm.
this has been just an exponential increase in what I can do. It's faster, it's better, it's easier. Yeah, it's a thing I'm not used to. I'm not used to like just prompting my way to nodes. But
Mm-hmm.
once I'm used to it, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So to your question, what does the future hold? It holds, yeah, I don't know, man. It's gonna be cool. We're gonna be talking a year and be like, hey, remember last year we talked about this? And you
Yeah.
know, like I think a lot about like image generation and video generation, and those things are cool. But I'm always like, how are people? That's what I want to like. I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited to see how people are using it. That's what I always think about.
I had to take like 6 months ago on this podcast. I was like, man, I don't know about Google anymore. I just don't know about Google. They're getting beat on many fronts. I don't know I don't know what's happening with them, and predicting their decline. And then, man, this week Google had a banger of releases that were just like killer, 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 killer. And so
Yeah,
you never know. I feel that way about Apple right now, where it's like, what is Apple doing with Siri and all this other stuff? Like, where are they? I'm so down on them, but who knows? These giants and the compute that they have, the team that they have, the resource that they have, you never know when they're going to strike with this next generation thing. So it's a really exciting time. Some people are really scared about it. Some people are really optimistic about it. I think with all things, there's good and bad, but I'm excited to see where it goes. And I think we're really lucky to be living at the time that we are now and have the power at our hands to do the things that we want to do more faster, better than ever before.
yeah. I mean, look, I don't know what Apple, Google, I'm not that level of prognosis. Like, I'm much more of like, I did a webinar this morning and talking about MCP nodes and Salesforce. And like, I could see people just feeling like, oh my God, I can do this now. Right. Like,
Cool.
I'm the perfect example. Like, look, I've been using Zapier for 10 years. If you told me to use
Mm-hmm.
Zapier and Salesforce, I would have been like, oh crap. Like, oh, it's going to be such a pain. Like, oh, I think back to like, how do you format a linked record in Zapier? The bane of our existence. Oh, if you use web reference field, you know what I mean? Like all this niche knowledge that we learned over the years, I'm just like, that's no longer a barrier. And
Mm-hmm.
that's so cool. And that's so exciting. And yeah, like a lot is happening. A lot is
Mm-hmm.
happening. But I always kind of like, I'm like, I always think of like, what can I do? Or what can I control? Or what do I do in my day to day? And it's so empowering. It's so I come back to like GumLoop and MCP nodes and yeah, like other automation tools are doing some super empowering things too. I don't want to say it's just that, just
Sure.
GumLoop. So Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll talk in a year, and hopefully I still have this little excitement in my voice. That's what I'm hoping, because I definitely have it right now. And yeah, it's just so cool to see people who are like, oh my God, I have this power now. It really feels like, early 2018 where we were
Yeah.
all like,
Feeling that
Zapier
way with no
Webflow member
code,
stack.
right?
Remember that? That was
Yeah.
like a whole thing.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk to that about that to people. They'd be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" I was like, "Man, you wouldn't believe with the
Yeah.
things we built, the most jerry rigged
Yep.
Jenga things ever." Um, that's it. I still think there's expertise here. I still think there's skill. Um, I think the people who succeeded in 2018, those types of people still succeed in this world because it's not just prompt. Yeah, you can get started with prompt, but then someone's gonna be like, oh, but how do we do this? How do we route? How do we think about these
Architecture and
things?
all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's skill, and there's skill in understanding the systems. But what there's less skill in is that rot. Like, oh, yeah, I'm smart because I know you have to put a bracket and then a squiggly mark, and then you have to put it in this order. That's no
hmm
longer what's important. What's important is like, do you think in systems? Do you think in understanding the nuances of your workflow, understanding its edge cases, the things that you, as someone building the systems, is uniquely positioned to understand?
Yeah.
So I am both, couldn't be more excited, and think the impact of people who understand systems will be even greater in the next 4 to 5 years, because they will now have the power to do what and automate what it is they want to automate, in a way that we didn't have. And I feel empowered as a member, I hope, of that group. Maybe there's obviously people better than I am, but yeah, and I'm hoping also that GumLoop plays a big role in empowering those types of folks to build really cool workflows. And I think everything we've done so far is a part of that. But these MCP nodes and prompting and agent mode are just going to lower the floor and increase the ceiling so much. I'm super excited.
Let's end on that note. Where can people find more information about GumLoop? Where can they get started if they need to learn GumLoop and take the next steps?
Yeah, so gumloop.com, you can sign up for free. You get 500 credits, play around with it. If you want to learn GumLoop, gumloop.com/university. We have GumLoop 101 social media monitoring course, and we're adding more every day. And we run cohorts every 2 weeks, which is like a 3-day intensive program. You get invited to Slack, you meet your cohort members, and we have 3 sessions over the week to learn GumLoop. And then you have that little community to keep playing with GumLoop, and talk to other folks who are building on GumLoop. Yeah,
Very cool.
Aron Core, we're GumLoop AI on Twitter or X. I'm Aron Core, AronKor. Let me know. Super excited to have hopefully a lot of your folks in our community as well. And yeah, really appreciate you having me on, and can't wait to see what you build, what everyone builds. It's definitely an exciting time.
It's really exciting. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on today. And that's Aron from GumLoop. See you guys.
Thanks, JJ. Bye-bye.
What an incredible interview. Great to have Aron on. Love to get that interactive tour of GumLoop. In that last 45 minutes, we built like 4 different AI workflows to do all sorts of things. I really love the interface layer for this workflow builder. The ability just to build this workflow and then to share it with your teammates, make it really easy for them to add those inputs and access those workflows. Also, the MCP node creation is really great, especially for a newer company that is maybe short at integrations. Now with this support, they can make so many nodes and catch up much faster than ever and have it really connect to so many things. Doing a lot of great things. Love the form factor. Love the AI first ability. Definitely check out their university. Aron's doing a great job building that up. And otherwise, we have a really exciting show for you next week. This show was hot. Next show's hot. It's a great time to be listening to this podcast. If you're enjoying it, drop me a note. Let me know. Send me a review. Share it with your friends. Help us spread the word. We're here every week giving you the latest in NoCode and AI. That's it for this week. I'll see you next week. See you, gang.